Hi gang, this is Jonathan at the Piano Lesson. It's a little later today than I normally do these videos, but day kind of got away from me. But I'll do one of my usual ramblings. Hope you enjoy them. I kind of left that little diagram up from last week because I just thought there were a couple interesting things I wanted to touch on about all the things you are. And I had a great phone call from my first and most important jazz piano teacher who is having a birthday, and we've been keeping in touch now for decades. I started studying with him when I was 12 or 13. I'm a lot older than that now. But I was we were kind of talking about what we were doing and sharing, stories. And one of the things neither of us are doing very much anymore is teaching. And I was surprised that he wasn't teaching because he's, in the area that he's in, he's really a kind of a big name and well respected. But he was saying to me, he said, there are guys that have or gals, whatever, that have a lot of students, but typically they're like band instruments. They're clarinets or violins or cellos or something like that. Even guitar. People are learning guitar, I guess, because everyone has a guitar, but not so much keyboard lessons anymore, piano lessons. And something's kind of changed. I would venture to say that fewer and fewer people even own a real piano. And, an electric instrument might be a stopgap measure for, maybe testing the waters or before you get a piano. But honestly, if you're playing a keyboard and you're not playing a piano, you're playing a keyboard, you're not playing a piano. Because you're just not. And it's always better. I would much rather have a very modest, inexpensive instrument, piano, that was in good repair, but than the most expensive, slickest keyboard in the world, because keyboards just don't make music. Clarinets make music, but anyway, I think there's a certain culture also. A clarinetist can't typically make music by themselves, right? Piano players can. And of course, there's this, as everyone knows, there's this plethora of information on YouTube and the internet, and everyone's got a lesson about everything and a lesson about this, and learn this chord and learn this song and learn this blah, 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 blah. But learning an instrument is much more than learning a song or learning notes. And it's about forming relationships with people. And there's no possible way that I could have become a musician and a pianist without having had the benefit of physically sitting next to someone else, another human being, and hearing their sound and experiencing their humanity and relating to them. It's just irreplaceable. And that's really what people are missing these days when they're relying on, videos to learn from. There's no human connection at all. I mean, yeah, like this video here, right? I mean, there's a human connection to a point, up to a point. And I do think that, if you've acquired a certain skill level, probably a video would be more beneficial than to someone who doesn't know anything. But what I recall when I grew up, I mean, there was live music all over the place. There were bands all over the place. There were clubs all over the place. That's really very different now. That just doesn't exist. And, at the risk of sounding like an old man, I don't really hear any songs anymore. I haven't heard songs in decades. I don't think people know what a song is, frankly. I'll even give you an example because I was having breakfast at a place where I've been eating for ages, and they sometimes they play jazz on on the air, on the speaker system, and a lot of tunes from the 30s and 40s and big band stuff. And they were playing "Begin the Begin." It was a Cole Porter tune, for those of you who might not know or might know. And the person I was eating with, who was a lot older than me, 30 years older, and he commented because he liked the tune and he knew the tune, and he probably the tune was on the radio when he was growing up. And the waitress came over, and I said, "Oh, do you know any of these songs that are on the radio?" And she said, "Nope, no, I don't know, no." And I said, "Oh, well, they're real good songs." She said, "Well, that's not the music I listen to." Kind of in a hostile tone, and almost like I was invading her privacy, or I don't know. But I kind of see this. Pardon me. I kind of see this attitude, this sort of insular attitude, where it's almost like listening to music is akin now to like being on Facebook, or just sort of, it's very tribal. It's very difficult to kind of break through, the idea that someone would listen to some other kind of music is just offensive to them. It's like an assault on their, identity or something. So I just wanted to share that a little bit. That was just some thoughts, because the reason I became a musician is because another musician had a belief in me that I could become a musician. And I think I was a good student, but it was that their belief in me, and not just one person, but many people who kind of believed in me, right? And I enjoy teaching because I like to remember my teachers and my lessons. Those, to me, were the most important times of my life. And I like to transmit what I know from all of the relationships that I've had with my other teachers. I just think there's just something very beautiful and special about that. And many, if not most, of those teachers are gone now. And I guess I'll be gone at some point as well. So whatever I can leave, more the better, right? And I got a gig coming up October 2nd at Conway's House of Jazz. So I'm kind of preparing for that. I was thinking the other day about a tune, interesting tune, kind of a spiritual, and I meant to look in Wikipedia about that. So I'm just gonna look it up on the fly here, because sometimes I like to just look at the back. Right, here we go. Okay, so the song has different titles, but it's called "Go Down Moses," if anybody knows that tune. When Israel was in Egypt's land, let my people go. That's how the tune goes. You can find it online on YouTube. There's a great recording of Louis Armstrong doing it. And there's a fantastic vocal recording of Paul Robeson. For those who don't know the name Paul Robeson, you should look that up. Pretty important. But Wikipedia has it as "Go Down Moses." Sometimes it's "Let My People Go," but a African-American spiritual. And it's a story, a Bible story. You don't have to believe in the Bible to know your Bible stories, but this was about the Exodus from Egypt, when I guess it wasn't really, they talk about, it was a story of slavery in Egypt. You can look it up, but it's an interesting story. It's an interesting tune, and it's a good opportunity for me to also talk about minor keys, because we always talk about major keys, but this is kind of in a minor key. And before I get to that, I'm just gonna talk about this little chart I have up here, because we were doing something on all the things you are last week, and I just kind of left this up for myself to just sort of look at, just to kind of fun looking at. It's almost like a crossword puzzle, but all the things you are, we talked about it. It has, really I think 5 keys we talked about. It's in the key of A flat. I'm going to erase that just for the sake of it. It's in the key of A flat. It's in the key of potentially of F minor. It's in the key of E. It's in the key of, I could circle that. It's in the key of C. You might even say that it briefly goes to D flat. You know, you could say that. And let's see, and it does go to G as well. And the other things are sort of facilitate that. But you know, there's all of this potential. There's this, what's the word I'm looking for? It's like a surface tension. And if you fill up a glass of water, even beyond the top of the glass, just a little bit more to overflow, you know, but it doesn't overflow. You have to see that little kind of, almost a little bit of water coming out like that, up like a little curve on top, right? That's the surface tension of the water. Surface tension is a very interesting property in chemistry. You can measure surface tension. And in fact, that was one of the things that my father had me doing as a little boy. It was like that was his idea of a game, because he was a doctor. So, like, you know, you tell, oh, this is how you measure surface tension. But there's all of this interwoven potential in all the things you are. At any moment, it could go to the key of F minor, it could go to A flat, it could go to E, all of this kind of potential, these dual purpose. Sometimes in music we use the term pivot chord, because one chord can kind of lead to another chord. The most common type of pivot chord being like a secondary dominant. You know, so in the key of C, C would be the tonic, but C is also the dominant of the key of F. So, you know, F, G, A, B, C. So that C has the potential to go to F, and that's, you know, the primary chord is C in C, but it also functions as a secondary dominant, not a secondary chord per se. A secondary chord in the key of C might be the 2 chord or the 3 chord, right? The primary. So if we're talking about all things you are, we talk about the potential that exists here, key of F minor, right? Key of A flat, right? And actually A flat to D flat. And C, you know, right? And then D to G, right? And B to E. And all of that is going on in the background. Like, that potential kind of exists, and you sort of tap into it at a given moment. It's like the song is this holographic, three-dimensional thing, and it's kind of swirling and whirling as you play it, and it reveals itself as you go. And it kind of is held together like a molecule, like electrons and protons, you know, that's kind of what makes it an entity. And that entity proliferates throughout, from one musician to the next. It's I don't know. I don't want to get too crazy here, but that's sort of my, you know, when I think about music theory, that's what I think about. I don't think about chords, and I don't think about rules. You know, I think about, it's exciting because you have all this musical potential available to you, and you can kind of tap into it. So, you know, just staring at that little chart there. But let's get into our song here. Okay, so I'm gonna erase that, and where's my eraser? My eraser's gone. Well, oh, here it is. I got it. I found it. There you are. Somebody erased the eraser. Probably very few people out there even remember chalk dust, but I remember chalk dust. Yeah, So I would have picked the key of G. It's interesting. So G, it's in G. So what are the chords in G that you wanna know? G minor, C minor, and D. Those are the big ones, right? 1, 4, and 5. Okay, those are the primary. Those are the primary chords in the key of G minor. And then there might be a little bit of a surprise chord here with this C minor chord. You could, what's the relative major of C minor? E flat. That's a possibility in there. I'll show you how that works. But here's C minor, here's E flat, right? Major, and here's C minor 7. So C minor 7. That there's a lot of similar notes in there, and on the top of that, right? There's also similar notes in G minor too. All right. So they have something in common, and the melody sounds like this. That's the whole beginning tune. And then Moses way down in Egypt's land, tell old Pharaoh, let my people go. That's the whole tune for the most part. So that's the whole thing. G minor, D, G minor, D, G, so 1, 5, 1. And then G minor, then C minor, and then G minor. And then you might do this. E flat, or you could just do C minor instead of the E flat. Now there's another possibility too. If to get to the D, we're in a minor key, if you want to use the 2 chord, well, the 2 chord is A minor 7 flat 5. So the 2 chord is A minor 7 flat 5, and that would go, right before the D. So yeah. Maybe that flat 5 becomes a flat 9. Now it goes back to G. Go down Moses, then back to G, but I wouldn't do a root position chord, I would do an inversion. You could do first inversion or second inversion. I think the second inversion is more interesting. A minor 7 flat 5, that's an interesting sound. With the D against that, that's a very... When I play minor 7 flat 5 chords, I often get rid of the 3rd and do that. Or you could keep the 3rd. That sounds awful together, but that is interesting. And of course you could do D7 right there. That's the whole tune. And almost, in some ways, it almost sounds Spanish. The Spanish cadence, right? You think of like, the G minor, F major, E flat major. But there's no F in there. We're not using an F. So what are we going to do? Oh yeah. So how would I play it? That's interesting. You could add a few more notes. Add the 11 and the 7. This sound, it almost sounds medieval, or it sounds kind of, Middle Eastern. I mean, that's your harmonic tetrachord. And that's interesting here. Descending bass line. Dominant, you could do that. E flat 7, you do E flat 7 or E flat major 7 possibly, but I like the dominant a little bit better. There's your blues, but those notes are in the E flat 13 chord. That's why it sounds good. And the minor 7. You know what else sounds good is you could make it into a reggae. Or how about this? How about right? Bob Marley. Make it sound a little raunchier, you know. That's kind of a interesting sound. Get back to here then. Well, my camera didn't move too much. It's very tight quarters in here, and if I just stick my foot the wrong way, all hell breaks loose. What was I going to say? One other little tidbit. I just have another couple of minutes I'll just share. I want to make sure that I'm not running out of time. Sometimes I watch other people's channels and I see little bits of advice here and there. And, you know, there is this, I call it a cookbook way of playing. You know, this scale goes with this chord. And it kind of works sometimes. You know, it's not necessarily a bad way of thinking. But it only goes so far. So, an example, what's a cookbook way of thinking? Well, cookbook way of thinking would be like if you have a dominant 7 chord, like G7, okay? So Ionian, Dorian, Phrygian, Lydian, Mixolydian. So you say, use the Mixolydian scale with a dominant 7 chord, and that'll work. And it does. All right? So that's just fine and dandy, right? Of course, that's a bit of a vanilla sound. So one of the little tips that people give you is they say, okay, why don't you use a melodic minor scale? Now, a G melodic minor scale? No. An A flat melodic minor scale. How does that work? That doesn't really work well. But okay. So here's a melodic minor scale. That's the A flat melodic minor scale. That's 2 tetrachords, minor and major, right? And if you put the G7 there, excuse me. I think that was it. Did I do that right? Wait a minute. Wait a cotton picking minute here. Hang on. Hang on. Yeah. Yeah. Let me see. Yeah, that's it. I did it right. It just sounded wrong because of where I was starting. That's the scale. It sounds wrong because I'm starting on the A flat. I have to kind of resolve to the G. Why would you use that scale? Well, that could be considered the flat 9 and the sharp 9. And then there's the third, and there's the flat 5, and there's the sharp 5, and there's the 7 and the root. I prefer to think of it as a mode of the melodic minor scale. I prefer to think of this tetrachord, that's the lower one, and the upper one would be, that's the whole tone tetrachord that you would probably hear. You would avoid the C. And I find that more useful because these little groups, not only are these little 4-note groups more easier to remember, but you really have to think in terms of what the tonic is. What the tonic is. The tonic is G. We're in G. So to think of an A-flat melodic minor scale, just to me, is confusing. You really have to know the diatonic tetrachords. You know, we talk about the diatonic triads, diatonic 7 chords, but knowing those tetrachord groups, I think, is really important. Anyway, I better run. I hope that wasn't too much information or too little information. I hope the information was just right. And I will see you folks next time, and drop me a line, and apologies if I haven't been the most responsive, but it's not you, it's me. And with that, I will bid you a adieu. Till next time, this is Jonathan, the Piano Lesson. Bye-bye.